Lyra had never trusted humans. She had seen their kind through holo recordings on visiting ships and even in her own city streets during trade missions. They were reckless, unpredictable, and far too emotional for her taste. And yet here she was, standing on the observation platform of Virelia's tallest crystal tower, waiting for the human diplomat who had arrived that morning. Ethan stepped out of the hovering transport with a cautious curiosity. His black suit was oddly plain for a visitor from another world, but there was an energy in his movements that made Lyra frown. Humans always seemed to think charm and words could get them out of danger, but she had learned quickly that charm did not protect anyone from a falling crystal shard or a sudden anti-gravity surge. "Lyra?" Ethan said, walking toward her with a careful smile. "I'm Ethan. I was told you'd be my guide while I'm here." Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. "I am assigned to oversee your visit. You will follow my instructions at all times. Any deviation, and you will be responsible for the consequences." Her voice carried authority, and Ethan nodded politely, though his eyes sparkled with a quiet amusement. "I like rules," he said. "It makes things predictable." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "You are a human. You cannot truly understand predictability." Ethan chuckled softly. "Maybe not, but I try." Their first tour was through the city's main commerce district, a maze of floating platforms, crystal walkways, and shimmering energy vehicles. Lyra moved with perfect grace, stepping across platforms that hovered in midair without hesitation. Ethan followed carefully, occasionally pausing to admire the intricate architecture or take notes on his datapad. As they reached the central plaza, alarms suddenly blared. Red energy lights flashed across the sky. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Stay close," she said, grabbing Ethan's arm and pulling him toward a side street. "Attack?" Ethan asked, looking around as automated security drones streaked past them. "Rogue mercenaries," Lyra said grimly. "They have infiltrated the city before. They want to destabilize our government." She activated her communicator. "Council, the Eastern Quadrant is compromised. Initiate defense protocol." Ethan, despite the danger, felt a rush of excitement. His human instincts told him to help, to find a way to turn this crisis into a chance to prove himself. He scanned the area and noticed a narrow passageway between two floating towers. "There," he said, pointing. "We can reach the observation dome from that route. It's safer than running through the plaza." Lyra hesitated. Humans rarely thought ahead in emergencies. They panicked or froze. Yet something in Ethan's tone suggested he knew what he was doing. With a nod, she led the way. The two ran side by side, dodging falling debris and leaping across anti-gravity gaps that would have made a normal human fall to their death. Ethan kept up surprisingly well, his movements deliberate and surprisingly agile. Lyra found herself glancing at him more than once, her mind reluctantly noting his courage. By the time they reached the observation dome, the city below was a chaos of flashing lights, collapsing platforms, and distant energy blasts. Lyra activated the dome's shield, sealing them inside. She turned to Ethan, her chest heaving. "You are not as fragile as I thought," she admitted quietly. Ethan grinned, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "I can handle myself. Humans have survived worse than a few rogue mercenaries." Lyra said nothing. She wasn't ready to admit she felt a strange respect for him, but the thought lingered like a spark she couldn't quite ignore. The night was long. The observation dome provided a view of the city in flames and chaos, yet it was safe from immediate danger. Ethan and Lyra shared a silent meal, their conversation surprisingly natural despite the tension. Ethan asked questions about Virelia, its culture and its technology, and Lyra answered with her usual precision. Still, she noticed that when he laughed, it was unself-conscious, genuine, and for some reason, it unsettled her. "You are different from what I expected," she said finally, her voice softening. "I get that a lot," Ethan replied, "but I think it's a good thing." Lyra looked away, her gaze fixed on the floating lights of the city below. She had never imagined a human could survive such chaos, let alone remain composed enough to find humor in it. The thought made her stomach tighten, a reaction she did not understand and certainly did not want to examine. Hours passed, and the distant sounds of conflict below began to fade. The city's defense systems had regained control, and the rogue mercenaries were either captured or fleeing. Lyra finally allowed herself to relax slightly, though her mind kept returning to Ethan. "Why are you here, really? she asked, breaking the silence. Ethan tilted his head. To understand your world, to help build trust between our species, and honestly, to see if humans can actually survive on Virelia without getting into too much trouble. Lyra snorted, the faintest smile tugging at her lips. So far, you are barely surviving. I'd say surviving just fine, Ethan said, leaning back against the glass wall of the dome. And I'm learning from the best. The compliment made her pause. She had never considered a human could teach her anything, and yet in his calm, steady way, he had just done so in a matter of hours. Lyra spent the rest of the night observing him, noting the way he reacted under pressure, the way his eyes never wavered from a problem until he solved it, and the way his voice remained calm even when danger surrounded them. Humans were resilient, she realized, in a way she had never understood. By morning, they were forced to leave the dome as the city began recovery operations. Lyra expected Ethan to falter as they navigated the precarious platforms again, but he did not. He adjusted to the anti-gravity currents quickly, demonstrating an adaptability she had not thought possible. As they reached the safety of the council chambers, Lyra felt an unfamiliar tug in her chest. She could not name it, could not admit it, but something about the humans standing beside her had changed her perspective. Humans, she thought grudgingly, might be fragile in some ways, but they were strong in others, stronger than anyone had given them credit for. The council members were quick to interrogate Ethan, questioning his motives, his background, and his suitability for diplomatic work. Lyra answered on his behalf, her words carrying authority and, surprisingly, a hint of protection. She did not realize she was already feeling a sense of responsibility toward him. Ethan, for his part, remained calm and respectful, answering questions honestly and with humility. He impressed not just the council but Lyra as well. When the council finally dismissed them, Ethan looked at Lyra. "Thank you for defending me," he said quietly. Lyra's eyes met his. For a moment, she almost said something she had never said to a human before, something about trust, about respect, maybe even about admiration. But she turned away, telling herself she could not let her guard down. Humans were still too unpredictable. Later that evening, Lyra returned to her private quarters to rest, but sleep eluded her. Her thoughts kept returning to Ethan, the way he had stayed calm under fire, the way he had adapted to Virelia's strange and dangerous environment, the way he had laughed and smiled even when everything was falling apart. She could not understand why she felt a flutter of something she had never felt before, a curiosity and fascination that bordered on concern. No, she would not allow herself to feel anything beyond professional interest. Humans were not meant to matter to her in that way. They were a distraction, a potential hazard, and nothing more. But as the night stretched on, Lyra realized she could not stop thinking about him. Even when she tried, even when she focused on her work, Ethan's image lingered in her mind. His human resilience, his courage, his quiet charm, it was impossible to ignore. By dawn, she knew one undeniable truth. Something about this human had changed her. She could not explain it, could not name it, and would never admit it aloud. And yet, deep inside, she felt a stir of curiosity and connection she had never experienced with her own kind. Little did she know, the unexpected reaction between humans and her species was beginning in ways she could not yet see. The universe had plans that neither she nor Ethan could anticipate, and the bond forming between them would soon challenge every rule she had lived by. For now they were allies, survivors, and companions in a strange, dangerous world. But tomorrow everything would change, and Lyra would be forced to confront feelings she had sworn she would never allow, a truth that would shatter her resolve and redefine the boundaries between human and alien. The days after the attack were quieter, but Lyra could not ignore the strange feeling growing inside her. Something was different. Subtle changes in her body and mind hinted at a biological reaction she had never experienced before. She tried to dismiss it, blaming stress and exhaustion, but she could not deny the truth when the council's medical sensors picked up the anomaly. Ethan, unaware of the changes, continued his diplomatic work, learning more about Virelia's culture, technology, and politics. He was careful, thoughtful, and patient, always seeking to understand before judging. Lyra observed him closely, her usual analytical mind noticing details she had previously ignored. The way he moved with purpose, how he adapted to new environments, and how he seemed to remain calm even when faced with unexpected danger. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Ethan found Lyra in the observation dome. The sky above the city shimmered with a soft violet glow from the twin moons. She was silent, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "You're quiet tonight," Ethan said, stepping closer. "Is something wrong?" Lyra turned to him, hesitating. She wanted to dismiss it, to maintain her strict distance, but the truth pressed too strongly against her. "There is something I need to understand. Something about my biology. It appears your species has caused a reaction in me that is rare, unexpected, and complicated." Ethan's brow furrowed. "What kind of reaction?" Lyra took a deep breath. "I am pregnant." "By you?" The words hung in the air. Ethan froze for a moment, then instinctively reached for her hand. "Pregnant?" he repeated softly. "But how?" Lyra shook her head. "I do not know. It is a rare biological connection that occurs between humans and my species. It was not anticipated by anyone, and it is significant." Ethan's mind raced, but he felt an unexpected calm. He looked into Lyra's eyes and saw the fear, confusion, and something else. An openness she rarely allowed anyone to see. "Lyra, whatever this is, we'll figure it out together," he said gently. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to lean on him. She had spent her life relying only on herself, trusting no human, but now she understood that Ethan's presence brought stability, courage, and compassion, qualities she could not ignore. Over the next days, Lyra withdrew from public appearances, focusing on understanding the pregnancy. Ethan stayed by her side, learning about Virelia's medical systems, assisting with research, and offering emotional support. She was surprised by how naturally he adapted, how he respected her boundaries while also remaining deeply involved. As the council continued their work, Lyra faced their scrutiny. They were curious, cautious, and somewhat skeptical about the unprecedented situation. She explained the biological reaction, its rarity, and the potential implications for human-Virelian relations. To her astonishment, the council responded with interest rather than outrage. They were intrigued by the possibility of creating a new bond between their species. Lyra still struggled with her own feelings. She had spent years believing humans were unpredictable, unworthy of trust or affection, yet now she felt something stronger than respect, something that frightened her with its intensity. Ethan had shown her courage, patience, and an unwavering kindness that made her question everything she had believed. One evening, as the twin moons reflected off the crystal towers, Ethan and Lyra sat together in the observation dome. Ethan had prepared a small meal, simple by Virelian standards but comforting nonetheless. They ate in silence at first, each lost in thought. "Ethan," Lyra said finally, her voice quiet, "I never expected to feel this way about you." "About a human," Ethan smiled softly. "I didn't expect it either. But sometimes life surprises us. Sometimes the people we least expect teach us the most." Lyra looked at him, her heart pounding. She wanted to speak, to express the fear and hope swirling inside her, but words failed her. Instead, she reached for his hand, a gesture she had never offered to a human before. Ethan's fingers intertwined with hers, warm and steady. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. Lyra felt the child within her move for the first time, a gentle reminder of the connection that now tied her to Ethan in ways she could never have imagined. She named the sensation the reminder, a small, personal acknowledgement of the life growing inside her. As news of the pregnancy slowly reached the council, Ethan and Lyra prepared for the next challenge, introducing their situation to the citizens of Virelia. Lyra worried about public perception, fearing that her own kind might reject the child. Ethan reassured her. "Lyra, we've faced worse together. This is just another challenge, and together we'll make it through." The announcement was met with a mix of curiosity, astonishment, and cautious acceptance. Citizens marveled at the unprecedented bond between human and Virelian, and many admired the courage it took for Lyra to embrace the truth. Ethan remained quietly supportive, never seeking attention, simply showing that humans were capable of empathy, understanding, and strength. Lyra's perspective continued to shift. She had once believed that humans were fragile, emotional, and weak. Now she realized that they possessed qualities that even Virelians struggled to master: patience, resilience under pressure, and the ability to form deep, lasting connections. She understood that the child they would raise together would symbolize a new era of cooperation, understanding and unity between their species. Despite the public's curiosity and occasional whispers, Lyra found comfort in Ethan's steady presence. They spent long hours in the observation dome discussing plans for the future, imagining what life might be like for their child, and sharing quiet moments of laughter. Ethan learned to navigate the complexities of Varelian culture, while Lyra discovered the simple joys of human companionship. The pregnancy progressed, and Lyra's body adapted to the changes with remarkable efficiency, a testament to the unique biological connection between human and Varelian. Ethan continued to support her, learning how to monitor her health, how to anticipate the child's needs, and how to remain present in ways she had never expected. One night, as they watched the sunrise over the crystal towers, Lyra spoke softly. "I never thought I could feel this way about a human, about a life that is both human and Varelian." Ethan took her hand in his eyes reflecting the soft morning light. "And yet here we are, stronger together than we ever could be apart. This child, our child, is a symbol of what we can achieve." Lyra nodded, a mixture of relief, wonder, and hope filling her heart. She realized that her previous prejudices had been challenged not by force, but by quiet strength, courage, and the simple, unwavering humanity of one individual. The months that followed were filled with preparation, learning, and growing anticipation. Lyra trained Ethan in aspects of Varelian parenting, and Ethan taught her about human methods, blending their approaches into a unique system that respected both cultures. Their bond deepened, no longer limited to respect or curiosity, but rooted in mutual care, understanding, and love. When the child was finally born, a healthy hybrid with features of both species, Lyra felt a profound sense of awe. She held the small life in her arms, feeling both the vulnerability of human infancy and the resilience of Varelian strength. Ethan knelt beside her, sharing the moment, his hand resting gently on hers. The council, citizens, and visiting dignitaries celebrated the birth as a symbol of unity, and Lyra found herself speaking with pride about the human who had changed her life. She no longer saw humans as fragile or unpredictable. Instead, she saw a species capable of courage, empathy, and love that transcended the boundaries of worlds. Ethan looked at Lyra, his voice soft but steady. "We did this together, and we will continue together no matter what challenges come." Lyra smiled, the warmth in her chest spreading like sunlight. "I never believed I could feel this way about a human, but now I cannot imagine life without you, or without our child." Together they watched the sunrise over Virelia, the twin moons fading, the city alive with energy and possibility. Their bond, forged in crisis and strengthened by trust, would endure, shaping not only their own lives but the future of two worlds. The human and the Varelian, once strangers, had become partners, parents, and pioneers of a new era, and for the first time in her life, Lyra embraced the unpredictability of humans, not as a weakness but as a source of strength, hope, and love that could change the universe itself. The story ended not with conflict but with promise, a promise that despite differences, despite fear, and despite uncertainty, connection, understanding, and courage could bridge any gap, even between worlds.